thought I'd give you a little timeline here of how this, how things happened here. So, on May 19th, so we talked about May 13th. That was when I first did the calculations, and I was on lots of programs, and then things quieted down. But Representative Markey's staff called, and on May 19th, I appeared before Congress and told them essentially what I just told you. That, you know, not only is this doable, but it's actually pretty easy. And so I think that I was a pawn in this game. You know, I told you already I'm fairly naive. And Markey was looking for a stick to hit BP with and maybe to hit the government with. And I volunteered to be that stick. So, you know, maybe I should have been more savvy, but in any case, I was that stick. And on May 20th, you draw your own conclusions here, whether that was a coincidence or not. But on May 20th, Admiral Allen created the Flow Rate Technical Group, which was a government committee, interagency committee, with academic help. And I think the government was a little embarrassed that they hadn't kept track of this flow rate issue, or that they just trusted BP's number. And so they decided to put a bunch of academics on the panel. In fact, most of the people who did the actual work were academics like me. So I was one of those on this panel. And then a week later, well, after this panel was established, we had some clout, some you know, ability to ask for things. We didn't really make BP produce anything, but they agreed to cooperate with the group, and so they provided us all kinds of videos. We spent a week looking through them, and we came up with what was a largely misunderstood press release by everybody, including Admiral Allen. And the press release from the Plume team is the team that I was on looking at the videos, said, we don't know what the maximum value is, but we know that the minimum is in the range of 12 to 25. The flow is definitely greater than 12 to 25. And at this point, we didn't have enough video to look at to determine what was the upper end. All right, so 12 to 25. Then about 2 weeks later, after we'd gotten lots more high-quality images, high-quality videos, we were able to come up with a range here. And the range is down here, Plume team. We said minimum of 20,000, maximum of 40, probably in the range of 25 to 30. That's what the video said. All right, and that's one thing to point out here. You know, the press release came on June 10th, but that was for the period prior to the top kill and prior to the cutting the riser on June 3rd. So this actually happened to be something, I think it was May 14th or May 15th was the images that we were looking at. All right, 20 to 40. And I thought I'd show you a little bit of those, some videos and things. So here's the situation on the bottom of the ocean. This is the situation prior to the cutting of the riser, the cut and cap operation on June 3rd. So here's the damaged well, blowout preventer sitting on top of it. This is about 50 feet tall. It's a big old structure. And if you haven't been paying attention, the blowout preventer, you could take apart the name, right? It's supposed to prevent blowouts. And it didn't work, and there are various allegations about it being poorly maintained. I can't say anything about that. But what we can say is that it definitely didn't prevent a blowout. So what happened was the riser pipe used to run up here, and a big bubble of methane shot up the riser pipe and blew up the oil rig, which burned and sank, and 11 people died. When it sank, the riser pipe that ran to the surface, which was a mile long, broke off, and 600 feet of it was laying on the ocean floor, and that's roughly sketched here. And there were 2 holes in it. You see here the end of the riser pipe. That was what we call the main leak. So the end of the riser pipe here was discharging the most oil, but then there was oil coming out of this kink point here. And I've got a little video of what that looks like. All right, so this is hard to see on the wavy background. This is that kink point, and you see some clouds of oil coming out of there. If you've paid any attention to this, you've probably seen this on TV already. And this is the main leak. This is now a high-resolution video, and you can probably tell the difference even from your seats that it's supposed to loop. This is the first time through this thing. You could probably tell the difference that the videos that we based our measurements on were definitely much better than initially posted, initially given to the TV networks. So, yeah, so none of this turns out too well on TV here, or I mean, on this screen, maybe in a light room. What we should be able to see here is a nice PIV image of the flow of the oil coming out of the end of the pipe, which gives more confidence that the PIV is measuring the right thing instead of the 6 vectors that I had on my first day. But just trust me that it looks good. Yeah, and there's the riser. Okay, that doesn't, we'll move on. So then the most recent numbers that we came up with are post-riser cut. So there was a cut and cap operation on June 3rd, and in which they came in initially with a diamond saw, but that didn't work because there are 2 drill pipes stuck inside the riser pipe. And if you imagine cutting through metal in your garage, if you don't hold the piece of metal still, if the piece of metal vibrates around as it's getting cut, which is what the drill pipe was doing inside of this riser pipe, the saw blade gets stuck. So exactly garage mechanics. So they couldn't get the diamond saw blade to go through there, and they came in with a big shears. It's actually the size of a car. Anderson Cooper had a picture of it on his show one night. So they came in with a big shears and just lopped it off, and that kind of malformed this end of the riser. But that turned out, I thought that was really bad news, but it turned out to be not so bad because the cap that they put on here sits on this flange, this big diameter flange here, and not on the pipe itself. So it seals off on the flange. All right, so, and let me show you. I don't know if you can see this. This image is better than others. So we can do the flip back and forth, and you can see the turbulent structure there. You can see, with your eye, you can identify the features that the PIV code is going to lock onto and calculate the displacement of. So again, another demonstration that this just isn't that hard. I like to claim that my work, is difficult and hard to do and so forth, but at a first cut, it's just not that hard. All right, so the flow rate technical group met on Sunday in Seattle, and we met for something like 10 hours on the nicest day in Seattle in months, they tell me. And we were sequestered into a basement room at the NOAA facility in Seattle, which was not pleasant at all, especially with the time change. So the flow rate technical group then debated. We did the same kind of measurements that I'm talking about, that I did, everybody in the group did. And then we compared our results and found, talked about, what were the advantages and disadvantages, and came to a consensus on what the likely flow rate is. And we said 30 to 55,000 barrels a day. That was the conclusion of the flow rate technical group. And that day that we met, we heard that Secretary Chu, Secretary of Energy, wanted to have our group and Woods Hole, who did some other measurements, wanted to have our group and Woods Hole and his DOE team all meet in Washington the next day. So there was a late in the day meeting in Washington the next day in which we did essentially the same thing. The 3 groups came together, and now the flow rate technical group had its numbers, its range, and Woods Hole had their range, and the DOE, which DOE had done they had a pressure measurement made between the inside of the cap and the sea. So they measured the pressure there. And then they did computational fluid dynamics, which is basically taking the equations of fluid mechanics and solving them, given some known pieces of information, like this delta pressure from the inside to the outside.